Hi, I'm Beck and I'm a property investor.
And I'm Daria. I own my own home and I'm curious about investing.
We're the hosts of Investors in the Wild.
We've heard it all before. Build your wealth, get expert advice, learn about high yield, high growth investments, blah, blah, blah.
That's just not us. We're real mates with real talk about real estate. No ego, no financial advice.
It's all about wins you can use right now.
Let's get into it.
Previously on Investors in the Wild.
It's such a big leap for someone to go from zero to subdividing, flipping, selling. You were 22 when you purchased it. 10 years later, you've developed it.
I had a mate that I grew up with. He was starting out on his own. It was his first or second build, and then we locked in the contract. A lot of problems arose. Weather, rain. Every time we dig a hole for concrete, it filled up with water and the job stopped for 2 months.
The friend I told you about, Beck, hers is 3 years in and they're still building her property. She's been screwed over a couple of times by a different builder. You had the experience and the foresight to know where to push and where to accept. I wouldn't have done that. We need an Illija Says segment. We need the hacks. You're like the hack expert.
I've been in the building industry for like 18 years and I've had a lot of arguments with a lot of people. I argue with my son every day and I argue with a lot of builders every day. The council approved me to pour the council strip of the driveway. So the house driveway was approved. Then they approved the council strip, but then they said the transition where my driveway meets them didn't comply. So they made me rip it all out while I had tenants.
Oh.
Yeah, the tenant didn't have a driveway for about 8 months to a year. So what I did, I just put gravel on there and I tried to make it, you've got to try and sympathise for them. In that time frame, the tenant parked on the street and had his car blown up.
What?
Yeah, someone blew his car up on the street.
Like explosion blew up?
Lit it up, yeah.
Boy, am I glad you didn't open that boarding house in that area. Crikey.
Yeah, and this guy was a doctor. He wasn't a criminal. Him and his wife work in a hospital, come home, cook, go back to work, and then he gets his car blown up because he parks on the street.
Did he expect you to compensate him?
I think I gave him a week's free rent, which pretty much covered his excess, $700 or something, $600. I gave him a week's free rent. I didn't need to, legally, I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're parked on a public road. That's a criminal matter. We sat down, made an agreement, and then we finally had a couple of meetings with the council about this driveway, finally came to an agreement. And then when we started excavating, we're going to get this done. And then as we started digging, we found the water main just under the driveway. The big water main for the street was only like this far underneath. They supplies the whole street with water. It's a massive pipe. Couldn't go lower with the driveway because of that water main. And I rang them up and they said, well, you need to move the water main.
What?
It's a big pipe. Yeah.
That's a big pipe because it's everyone's water and they're saying you've got to move everyone's water. Oh my God.
Yeah. So then I have to engage someone from Sydney Water.
How much did that cost?
20,000.
So what would happen? I don't know a lot of people who do things without the council knowing.
You can't do that. It's the
And
water
then-
main.
Okay. No, but even before that with the driveway stuff, was that just part of the whole house that they were approving?
That's all
So-
part of it. You can't
Yeah,
get the final
okay.
sign off without the council sending you an email saying, yes, we agree that all council inspections have been passed and paid. You cannot get your occupation certificate without.
Okay. Wow. Okay. This is getting quite hairy, this experience.
So we moved the water main. It's a whole new thing. Like you need to get it redesigned. You need to get a whole plan of how they're going to lower the water main, and then you need to get traffic control, engage the right contractor, get it quoted for 3 different quotes, make sure that everyone's included the same sort of thing. So because I'm in the industry, I sort of know these things. Someone else would pay a lot more money. The company that I engaged to start doing the plan, they're called a service water coordinator. So I engaged this guy and I said, all right, I need a design made, right? And he does the design. He goes and gets me 3 quotes and then I pick the quote and then they go and do the work. He said to me, we don't know what services are in there, So we need to dig up your driveway first. We need to excavate, see what services, and then we need to work out how we're going to design this water main to go lower, to go around the services. So we need to excavate. And I said, okay, how much is excavation? He said, mate, you're probably looking at about 10 grand. And I said, okay, no problem. I said, listen, just go out to the job. And it's only because I've got the experience as a plumber. And I said, no problem, mate. I said, go out to the job, go out to my house, mark up with spray paint where you want to dig. I said, and I'll dig it. He goes, oh, no, mate, you can't dig it. You need a level 2 plumber. They're the people that work on the water mains and the sewage pipes. You need a specific license for that. He goes, oh, no, like, we have to dig it. I said, mate, I can pay $130 to the Campbelltown Council. I can dig a hole in Campbelltown wherever I want, as long as I pay a road opening permit. I said, so you just mark it and I'll dig it. It cost me $500 my day rate. And he was like, oh. He goes, well, we need a camera. I said, that's all right. I've got a camera. I'll camera it. Just tell me what you want. I'll do it. So he tried to rip me off 10 grand there. Then
wow, that you knew this. See, I would just
I played him well.
I'll give you
Yeah.
20 just so I don't have to hear about it.
Yeah, I played him well. And then
You played the player.
and then as
oh my
he
God.
did the design, got it approved by the council, said, okay, no problem. So I knew it was going to work with the driveway, sent them the driveway plans. They made the water main work. And then I said, all right, can you give me 3 quotes? He said, mate, you're probably looking at about 30 to 50 or something between there, right? And I said, yeah, you give me these quotes, no problem. He goes, mate, the cheapest quote, he goes, this company is 30 grand. I said, oh, really? I said, show me the design. I said, can you send me the design so I can have a look at it? He said, yeah, sent me the design. I said, sweet. No problem. He goes, do you want me to go ahead? I said, no, just hold on for a second. So I rang a level 2 plumber that has that license. I know his work. I rang him up and he came in at 17,500.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah. So
these are things that our listeners will never know. Like I would never be able to know this, and I'm sure that most people are being ripped off then because
oh yeah, definitely. It's only because I'm in the industry, and then I had that quote for 7,500. I just double checked the quote, and I said, even if it comes in at a $2,000 variation, take it. I don't care. He's still at least 10 to 15 grand cheaper than anyone else. And then I just basically said, he rang me and he said, you want to go ahead? And I said, thanks for your help. I said, so I could just pretty much use any sort of level 2 plumber, right? He said, yeah, mate, yeah. So whichever quote you want to use, you can. I said, great. I said, here's my quote. I'll send it to you. I said, here's my quote.
So this was through that site where you said the people they compare quotes, and so they've given you a much cheaper quote than other people. Is that how you?
No, his quotes were 30 grand plus.
Where did you get the cheap one? Sorry,
I said to him, send me the plan. I said, I personally just want to look at what they're doing. And then I said, grab the quote, and I emailed it to someone else that I knew.
Okay, so you knew this other person.
It was a builder's contact, and we did a lot of work for the builder. And so I emailed it to him, and then he came in at least roughly $12,000 to $15,000 cheaper. It was actually half. It actually was half.
How do you know that how do you know? It's because you just know, I guess.
I'm in that sort of industry.
This is what we need.
I speak to builders and I always ask questions and I see people working and you come across people on the job. A simple hello goes a long way. Hello, how are you? That's it. Do you want a coffee? These sort of little things, we build friendships of coffee. What's a $5 coffee, $20 here and there? When you meet someone, you ask, hi, how are you? And they respond back in a nice manner. You sort of automatically know that they're a half-decent person.
I don't know. Like, I've got some stories to tell you. And I literally cold call people. Like, we had a roofing issue in our garage and we had to tape it off so that water was coming through. The first place I rang said it's going to be $5,000. And I was just like, okay, please come in urgently because I needed to renew our insurance and I needed to get that sorted before I could do that. And I'm thinking to myself, I literally did not compare what he said to anyone. I knew no one. I just literally just went with, I'm like, okay, he seemed really nice. Like, to me, it seems quite excessive for one part of the roof to be patched up for $5,000. Like, now that I think about it, I'm wondering did I get ripped off? I'm not sure. All I know is I'm going to give you a lifetime supply of coffee, Illija. And when I do the home renos, I'm going to check everything with you. I'm going to be like, is this fair?
I would love to take you up on the offer, but I've actually got my own coffee machine that does that for me.
No, that's okay. I'll give you a coffee store, like cafe coffee. Don't worry. Shh. Okay. No, but seriously, this is what we need to know. So if we could take away a tangible tip from this, what would it be for people like me who don't have connections in the industry? Honestly, the story that I'm listening to, I don't want to experience all the things that you've experienced. I know that you've made a killing off of it, but it sounds to me at face value, it sounds so painful. That whole like council and then quotes and then digging holes yourself and all of that. It's like when I hear that, it makes me want to run away from doing anything. Like, this is where, Beck, I'm just like, I just want to move into a nice, ready home and not have to do anything. But you are making a killing. So I guess if there was a way that I could save myself, is there something that someone like me could do where they don't have
You need to make sure you've got someone in the industry that you can refer to, because this is 18 years of experience here. It's not something that you can just pick up a book and read it. This is something that you experience every day, different problems, different contacts, different people. And yeah, you just meet different people.
Say you want to renovate a kitchen, okay, and someone's come in and said to redo your kitchen from scratch, to rebuild it, it's going to cost 40K. Then what do you do?
I would say, hey, I remember that job had a nice kitchen. Let's ask that builder who does his kitchens, and I would get a quote from his kitchen guy, because I would say, I've seen his work. He works for Paul. So if he does Paul's work, he obviously does good jobs because we've seen his work. Let's get a quote from him.
Got builder A, and he's come in and he's given me a quote for 40,000. So who am I giving that quote to?
If I did a kitchen renovation, I would be demolishing it myself. I wouldn't be bringing a builder in. I would demolish it myself. I would get my own kitchen guy in, my own tiler, my own plumbing. I would do all that sort of stuff.
I think there's a combination of things we're talking about here. Number one, Illija does what he can to keep the costs low.
And I've got all the connections to use different trades. I'm cutting out the builder's margin.
Illija will manage the whole thing and just get individual trades to come in. And then it sounds like, Illija, you will actually think of the kitchens that you've liked, and you will go to that builder and say, all right, I want you to quote me. I want you to quote me. I want you to quote me.
That's right. But if you're saying that you get a quote from someone in their kitchen's 40 grand, I would say, geez, Beck got a really nice kitchen done. Maybe I'll ask who did her kitchen and then compare it with someone else that you know that has done a nice kitchen. Because then you would say, oh, Beck, were you happy with the kitchen? How quick did they get it done? Is there any problems with it? Yeah, there was. Did they come back and fix it straight away? Yeah, they did. Okay, that's no problem. Things happen. Not everything's smooth sailing, but as long as the trade comes back to fix whatever the mistake is, and people make mistakes, it's the building industry. These are the questions that I would ask. How did your kitchen turn out? Was there any problems with it?
See, that's really interesting because, Dari, I don't know if you're getting flashbacks of the conversation we had with Nadisha when she was saying, when you buy off the plan, go and talk to people who live in the buildings that the developer has built before and say, hey, have there been issues? Has the developer been any good? So it's doing that before a kitchen. Has there been any issues with the kitchen? How have they been fixed? Is it a good kitchen? Does it work well? So not looking at Instagram and going, what looks good, but actually talking to people and saying, how does your kitchen actually work?
Yes. So what's becoming really clear through all the conversations that we're having about building and developments and renovations is you really can't afford to rest on your laurels. We're not, unfortunately, living in a society where you hire, like you pay a hairdresser to dye your hair and you just think, okay, they're quoting me $350. That's what it costs. I'm going to do it and I know what I'm going to end up with. Whereas with building, the range is so big and people can just basically pull prices out of thin air. So you do need to do your own research. You can't just think that I've hired an expert to project manage the renovations of my entire home. I'm giving them the kitchen, the bathroom, I'm repainting the house, I'm doing all these things, and I'm going to just wash my hands of it and then pay them the money at the end. If you want to save big bucks, you do need to go step by step, compare, check other builders, use your network. You do need to be quite hands-on to be making the savings. But it's worth doing because you're saving a lot. I'll never be an expert like you. You're in the industry. But I definitely can take away some tips and do more research than I would do normally, i.e. with the leaking roof in the garage and I paid $5,000. I won't be doing that. I need to do comparisons. I need to ask ChatGPT maybe.
There's little things like, example, a quote might say 5 square meters, and then you read someone else's quote and they might say they've allowed 6.5 square meters. Some quotes are different. Another guy might change part of the gutter because it was rusted. The other guy might not. So you need to pick the quote apart and basically print it off, highlight certain points, say, why is he not changing the gutter and why is he changing the gutter and what's the price comparison? Oh, well, if he's changing the gutter and he's only an extra $200, done. Let's just get it done. At least it's worth my while because it's only a couple $100 more. So you pick the quotes apart, make sure that he's allowed for all colors and let's take a step back to the kitchen renovation. I would make sure that plumbing's included, electric's included. Do I have to pay for the tiles? Are you paying for the tiles? If you're paying for the tiles, can I use the Kit Kat tiles or do I have a wide range of tiles? When I was building Campbelltown, he was going to put 450 by 450 tiles. That's tiny. That's more like a spec home, the small tiles. I paid extra to do 6x6s throughout the house.
They look much nicer, the bigger tiles.
That's right. I think there was an extra price to have 12 by 9 as well. So I didn't think about reading the quote at 450 by 450 tiles. So these are all things, like I said, with the kitchen renovations, you got to check to see what your range of tiles are. Is it included in the price? How thick's your stone? There's so many different little things that you need to compare. Just print off all the quotes and you highlight different parts and say, well, how much extra is it if I can use these tiles? And you got to pick the quote
It's
apart.
so interesting. We haven't had this gold nugget before, Illija. That's a new gold nugget to add to our list of gold nuggets, is dissecting the quote and comparing each line by line, like, and actually questioning the quote. That's a new one. Right,
Yeah.
Beck? I don't think anyone's ever said that before.
When Rebecca had that Rose Bay property and they were doing that major renovation, Rebecca sent me this $1.6 million contract and she sent it to me at 7:15 in the morning while I was driving to work. And she goes, can you read this contract? We've got a meeting at 8 o'clock. It was like 30, 40 pages. So I just had to skim it. And I actually picked up on rubbish removal. Like I read this contract, this 80-page, whatever it was massive. A $1.6 million contract is not going to be 5 pages. And I skimmed this contract and I still picked up on a lot of rubbish removal, patching the renderer. These all ended up being extras as well. So I actually picked up on it.
Wow. Good on you. My God, I feel like we need to incorporate you in as like a service. This is great.
Is there a weekly wage on this?
Yeah, the wage is you get to help a lot of people. And isn't that a good feeling of satisfaction? No, but seriously, you skimmed it and you came up with a few that did end up being a real thing. So imagine if you'd perused it with the time and everything. Like you are the expert now.
And that variation would not have been a 5-10 grand variation. The rubbish removal of that would have been 50K plus.
It was one of the variations that the builder added. And then we just, the first stage was 50 grand. It ended up being like 300 grand in waste. Hey, quick pause for some really exciting news. We are in the top 3% of most shared podcasts in 2025. How crazy is that? We are genuinely so honored and honestly a bit emotional about it. Here's the thing. We can only keep these conversations going if you keep spreading the word. So if this episode has given you ideas or is making you feel less alone in your property journey, or you've just had one of those, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I've been thinking about property development. Share this episode with someone who needs it too. Maybe it's your sibling who's investing curious or investing savvy. And while you're at it, hit follow on the podcast and chuck us a rating if you haven't already. It genuinely helps other people find us, which means more of us in the community helping each other grow. All right, let's get back into it. What are some of the smart things you see people doing with property?
They're spending more money to make them nicer to get a higher sale price. They're spending a lot more money with the finishes. They're spending more to get more out of it. So they're buying mainly in the Shire, so Cronulla, Sutherland, Caringbah South. They're also like within 15 minutes of each other. And the designs are so similar. Some jobs are like for like, some are very similar, and they're all brick on the bottom, cladding on top. Every trade knows what they're doing. Every single job's very similar. They look nice. They go up quick because they're cladded the top half, maintain the Hampton style look, and they're getting the job done quickly. Same trades. Yeah, same trade, same builder.
What I find so fascinating about this is imagine how much time you save if you're staying in the same area, dealing with the same council, building with the same materials, same plan, same trade, same tradespeople. You're just doing the same thing. How many times a year does the builder do this?
The first year of working for him, we're doing 9 duplexes, so 18 dwellings. And that was in the first year. We've probably got doing maybe 15 this year, 15 duplexes. So then you're looking at about 30 dwellings.
That's major. So he's doing 30 dwellings following the same recipe.
That's like a money-making endeavor. That's taking what you're doing, Illija, and scaling it.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that something you're thinking about doing?
Maybe not that many dwellings, but I'd be happy. I'm pretty content with probably doing 2 dwellings a year.
What do you see people doing that isn't smart?
Making a lot of changes. You're making changes and all the trades get confused. It slows the process, adds to the build cost as well. See, that particular builder, all the plans are very similar. But then we've got other builders that are always making changes. Oh, we're moving this wall, moving that wall, and it overcomplicates it. Stick to the plan, and then every dwelling is the same as well, very similar as well.
But I just feel like sometimes it's not the client that's changing the plan. Oftentimes you hear it's the builder who's changing the plan based on new discoveries that are being made as they're developing. Am I right? Or is there also a lot of people who, like owners, who are just like halfway through a build, they're like, oh, actually, I want this wall to be moved further out. Is that a common thing?
Most of our work isn't with many owners, because I think the builder would probably charge a lot of money if they had to move a whole wall and make major changes. So a lot of people probably wouldn't make major changes. So it's more so the builder. That's right. And for him to get a carpenter to move a wall, he's not going to charge him, or he might not charge him much.
Do you think it's a question worth asking when you're engaging builders? Say you're comparing 3 builders. It's like, how often have you changed the plan midway through? I guess, would you get the truth though? That would be
the builder wouldn't change the plan on you. He wouldn't change the plan on the owner.
I don't know. I feel like oftentimes I'm just like taking sound bites, but you hear about, oh, we thought we could do this, but we can't do this. So instead we're going to do this and it's going to cost this much more. You hear that often.
Okay, I'll give you an example. So when I was building Campbelltown, the garages were 4.4 meters high. Now, the builder engaged the structural engineer for that job to basically steel beams, concrete slabs, all the structure side of things. What they didn't account for is the height of the garage. Now, the particular timber that I use for most houses, it's a 90 by 45. It's standard timber for walls. But being the garage so high, after a certain height, they had to get a bigger timber so that basically the timber doesn't bow. So they had to get a thicker timber. And the builder tried to tell me that, mate, I didn't anticipate this. This is going to be a variation because I've got to get bigger timber, more timber to get the height of your garage ceiling as per the structural code. And I said to him, okay, no, that's fair enough. I said, who did the architectural drawings? I did all the designs. I said, you did. I said, okay, that's good. I said, who did the structural drawings? He went, me. It was like a long pause. And I went, so I said, all right, well, sort it out. All good. Speak to you later. I said, because that's your structural engineer. You engaged him. I paid you. You paid him. You guys should have worked it out.
It sounds so easy for you to say that, but don't they then say, well, it is what it is, so either pay me or I'm not going to do it? Like, the fact that they're doing what you're saying is shocking me right now, because I didn't think that much power lay on the side of the person. I thought the builders are the more powerful ones in this negotiation. It's just always how I felt.
They are. And towards the end, he was running rings around me in certain aspects, little things like, your drawings only show 5 stairs at the front to lead up to your front door, but going off your levels, you need 9. And I said, and the little things like that, he charged me $250 per step. Did I have a choice? No. Then there was another bit in the contract that said all stairs to be in concrete. I said, okay. But when he meant that, he just meant like the stairs leading up to the house. Now there were stairs leading up to the granny flats in the middle. He was going to do them in timber decking. I read the contract, and the contract, it says all stairs to be in concrete. So I said, well, you need to do them in concrete. And he goes, I'm just going to do them decking. So I was like, and it hit a point. I was like, all right, take your $7,000, because sometimes it's a short-term loss, long-term gain. I just had to pay the extra money, certain extra amounts of money, just so the job site didn't stop. If that job stopped, you got to stop. You got to get engaged lawyers. You got to go to court. You got to wait for court dates. Then the lawyers sit down. Then you go home. Then you need to go back to court again. Come back home, and you go to court. Before you know it, a year's gone by, a year and a half's gone by. Your job site's sitting there. You can't do anything with it because legally he owns it. He owns the site. So there was things where I just cut my losses on certain things.
So you chose your battles basically, and you picked some things where you knew you would be more likely to win, and you pushed him on that.
I was a lot more confident at the start, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Towards the end, my main focus was for this job site to not stop, because the loss of rental would be quite significant.
Well, at that point, you'd outlaid so much money, you need money to just start coming in. You just need the money to stop going out and for more money to start coming in.
Yeah, well, let's just say you're $800,000 down. You've got to keep this job moving so I can get this place rented out, or in some people's instances, move in. Yeah, okay, people might pay extra money and you'll never see that builder again, but sometimes a job sitting there for 2-3 years is a lot more costly financially, mentally, and just everything, just stressful. Imagine driving past your house half finished. So I thought about that. I never wanted to go to court. So there was certain things that I just, said, no problem, whatever, just pay it. Few grand here, there, whatever. It is what it is. So I didn't win every battle. And I said to myself, there's all these grey areas on the quote. But once you finish the job, you think, I'm in my home. I move on. There's a lot of people that are stubborn. I was like, what for?
Yeah.
Final question from me. What do you wish someone had told you earlier about subdividing and doing this sort of project?
Subdividing is still quite a difficult area, even for builders. And it's always good to outsource the subdivision to someone that knows what they're doing. I personally didn't do my subdivision. I tried, and it consumes a lot of your time. So outsource the subdivision. In my instance, I had a builder where I asked him if he could get his bookkeeper to do it for me. So my circumstances are a bit different. Another company said starting at $6,000, but starting and finishing is two different things. And I just didn't like that vibe. If you give me a range between 6 and 15 grand, I'm going to expect 12. If you give me a range, I'll go with you. You need to, same thing, compare apples to apples. I really didn't get a good vibe from them, so I just didn't use them. If you can get someone that knows what they're doing, having someone on board to help you with the planning stage. At the moment, we're in the planning stage. Architects are very hard to get a hold of and get responses from. So always having someone that has more time than yourself. We work all the time, so it's good to have someone else pester the architect and just be a pest, really. That's what she gets paid to do, is pester. She pesters me as a plumber. She pesters the architect, and yeah, it's good to pay the extra money and offload the responsibility to someone else to just make your life a bit easier and to get the job started as well. Yeah. Otherwise, you end up spending 2-3 years in the planning stage. And we're doing that right now, where we've engaged an architect and we're stuck with him. And then he gives us a bit of false hope. Don't worry, I'll get this done for you. And then he goes MIA for 2 months. And he's like, no, I'm going to do this for you guys. I feel bad after what's happened. And then he starts responding straight away and then disappears. But then the lady that we've engaged pesters them. She does. So if you're going to build with someone, get them to do all the planning, because they want the job. They want to build the house for you. So you say, okay, well, I want to plan it with you guys. Engage a builder and get those people to do the design, and they'll do it a lot quicker because they want to build the job. They want to build the house for you, or the duplex, whatever it may be. So they're going to try and get that approved as soon as possible.
Just one last question, and I'm thinking of myself here. What type of person should not embark on such a development?
Someone that's got no idea. You need to have some sort of background experience.
So yeah, I've literally walked out of this conversation thinking I will never touch a new development ever.
Really? You just need to have someone that you can always call. And
yeah, that's what I need. So I need a developer husband at some point. I need a developer in my life and I'm happy to be the investor and they can develop it. But basically, I think it was your first one, which is actually why I was like, maybe I could, because you were 22 when you purchased it. 10 years later, you've developed it. It can be done, but then the type of person that should not be doing it is someone who has no clue, no background. You need to have the network, at least. You need to have someone to bounce ideas off, have conversations with. Obviously, that's what this show is about. So hopefully someone who is brave enough to take that step will have a few new tools in their toolkit when embarking on this, but you still do need a basic level of where to go. Like a planner, that would never occur to me. I wouldn't even know if the planners exist. I'd just be calling a developer and then they'll tell me, oh, my planner's included and that'll be another 20K. I don't know what I don't know. So
the lady that does our, like, that chases the architect and stuff, she the admin lady inside a building company.
You pay her a little bit more to chase them, is that right?
Most builders will charge for that. They will charge for their time, but these guys will be building the job. We've become friends, so he's happy to help and get this done, but he's going to end up building the duplex that we do anyway. It's in his best interest.
You have a lot of insights, Illija. I feel like we need to do an episode where we give you a theoretical new development and then you go through all of the considerations that one must have if they were to turn that into a subdivided piece of land, like maybe a step-by-step, okay, look at this area, look at this part, look at that. It's a whole universe out there that is so unfamiliar to me that I find it really fascinating. And I really admire you. It's quite a big risk. It's a lot of reward as well, what you're getting out of it. But you've put yourself through a lot of effort to get to that point as well. So my hat goes off to you. I admire that. It's very brave. There might be people who are actually very keen to do it. And just because I'm a sissy doesn't mean the world is a sissy. There are lots of brave people out there like Illija who are willing to take the step. Oh my God, what a story. That was such a story. I'm sure we're going to need you back on the show, Illija, to maybe deep dive into a particular, like, what would Illija do in this situation?
You know what I think we need to do, Daria? When you start getting quotes for your kitchens, I think we need to do a What Would Illija Do episode where we just get the quotes next to each other and we say, Illija, you tell us exactly how you would dissect this quote.
Do you know how useful that would be for me? I know so many people who are redoing their kitchens, but this whole, like, comparing quotes, you don't know what you're comparing. I don't know about tile sizes, for example. It's all really useful stuff. So I think that's a great idea. Let's do a kitchen deep dive. No situation is ever going to be foolproof with anyone who's investing in a new build or a renovation. There'll always be something that slips through the cracks. But if our listeners can go in with at least a basic level of understanding, now I know that I need to do research when someone's given me a quote for something and arm wrestle, and I have more power to negotiate than I thought. So just little tips that can help someone think a little bit more deeply rather than just throwing their money at a builder to do the development, which I'm sure most people do who don't have experience. I think it's really useful having you here and learning from how you've approached it. That was fascinating. Like, how I've got to become an expert.
Well, we are hiring in our plumbing company, so
I'm a good negotiator when it comes to.
Well, you won't be negotiating your wage very much, I'll tell you that now.
Bye. Nice to meet you. Thank you, guys.
Hey, it's Daria. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Spotify and drop a rating or a review. It'll help others find the show. And if you know someone who'd benefit from this conversation, please share it with them. We'd also love to hear from you, so DM us on Instagram at Investors in the Wild with feedback, questions, or topic ideas. And if you're an investor with insights to share, hit us up on Instagram or email us at investorsinthewild@gmail.com. After all, we're all mates helping each other.